Hey guys, this is Brett with The Prepared Man. I want to talk to you about some of our shelter options that we have. Now, as bushcrafters or modern outdoor enthusiasts, you're going to be tempted to use a tent because that's what you use with your dad and that's what you use in the family campouts. But there's a lot of downsides to a tent. One of the things is you've got to find a flat, level surface to spend a good night in a tent. I've spent a lot of bad nights in a tent, so I know what I'm talking about. Another thing that you have to worry about is even if it's a nice, dry, pretty day like it is today, is it's going to get humid in that tent of a nighttime, and that's when your candle lanterns come in or your opening flaps and all these things. Now there's a lot of really good options if you just take a tarp, and we've got a wide selection of tarps here behind me, including just your regular utility poly tarps. That's actually what I use quite a bit. We have heat sheet tarps, we've got sil nylon tarps, we've got polypropylene tarps, we've even got oilskin tarps hanging up here. So we're going to set up a couple of different configurations for you, show you how it works, talk about some considerations for an overnight underneath the tarp. So just stick with us, guys, and we'll be right back with you. One thing I forgot to cover with you guys was just stakes. Now a lot of people carry stakes into the woods. You do have options. If you don't carry stakes into the woods, you can just cut a stick, sharpen it on one end. I like to cut a line notch in mine. But if you want to go the commercial route, you do have other options as well. Some of our lightweight people, our backpackers, our ultralight guys will carry titanium or aluminum pin stakes. I carry steel pin stakes just because they take up a lot less room. Or you have these big PVC stakes that you can carry as well. They're all very economical, but it's something worth considering having in your pack. They don't take up a lot of room, they don't take up a lot of weight, and you'll see how we use them in just a minute. Alright, up first we've set up the GI Poncho in Woodland. Now these are getting increasingly harder to find just because they're not in production and we don't carry them anymore, they're not issued. But this is just basically a sil nylon tarp with a hood hole, and it's got metal snaps. We've set it up in the lean-to configuration, and you would just bed down for the night right back in there. And this is really good for good weather. Keeps the sun off of you, basic windbreak. You can cook and use this as a windbreak. This is a very basic setup. Okay, real quick, we've set up another tarp shelter. This is a much larger sil nylon tarp, and it has a feature that we don't have on a lot of other tarps, and it's a center tie out. And what I've done is I've tied out this center tie out to a stake, and that allows me to billow out and make a convex or a concave shape rather in my lean-to shelter. And that gives me more headroom once I get inside, where I can work, I can move around, I can make my little bit of breakfast or coffee or whatever I need to do. And it's still basically the same setup. So we're going to set up a couple more shelters, then we're going to talk about some different designs. Just stick with us. Up next we have the plow point shelter. Now this is tied with a square tarp. This is an 8x8 tarp, an oilskin from Tent Smith. And we've tied it up in this plow point configuration, which really gives you a lot of protection from rain. It provides you with a center ridge so it will shed rain and wind. And it gives you a lot of working space. Now, if we step around here and we look inside, you got a lot of space in here to put your gear out to the side. You've got a working area that's up high. You can put a small fire on the ground in front. And you could really use this space as more of a sustainable shelter. It's also really easy. There's only 3 stakes in this shelter. One other feature that the Tent Smith's tent has, this tarp has, is a center tie out. So I can tie this out and actually raise this shelter up. And I'll show you from the back. If I raise this shelter up by tying it to a tree or to a taller stake, I can have a working space. And this is what some other people call a modified plow point. Up next, we've got a modified lean-to. Now it's very similar to the other lean-to. We've just got our ridge line, but we've pulled the excess to the front of the tarp to make sort of a slanted roof for our shelter. Now the reason I would use this is in flatter land where I don't have the geography for the sun to fall behind a mountain and still be daylight, and it'll keep that direct sunlight off of me while I'm working. Now this is a 10x12 poly tarp setup just from Walmart or wherever, and you can see I've got a lot of space in here. There's room for 1 or 2 people. I could bed down and have workspace. I could actually build a small fire toward the edge of the tarp if this wasn't a poly tarp. and do some work there, char my materials, rebuild my fire kit, and I could work in here in very inclement conditions. Alright, this is our last tarp in our basic tarp setups, and this is just that modified lean-to, but we've put another ridge in with this pole, and what that does is raise us more and more space that we can enter and exit through easier. We can use this with a cook fire, or if we need more space to work inside. And the only extra work is I've tied another line to this grommet point. I've pulled up a pole that I can pull up that center, and then we've tied a guy line down to the ground and tied it off to a stake to keep tension on it. A couple of things I do want to point out: if you're going to make a modified lean-to, is to use your prussiks to pull that ridge line tight so the wind can't literally just blow your lean-to up on top of you, and you get all those wrinkles out and get it tight, because wrinkles allow paths for falling water. So this is our last tarp in our basic lean-tos, and as you can see, they're a very versatile piece of kit, and hands down they're much better than a tent. So that's pretty much it for basic tarp setups. This is Brett for Prepared Man. Stay safe.